Okay, Rabbi, say, why don't we get started? We're on Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amid Aleph. Yesterday we saw a Mishnah that told us that the daughters of Tzalafcha didn't just get one portion in Eretz Yisrael, they got three portions in Eretz Yisrael. What were the three portions? The portion of their father Tzalafcha, because he left Egypt, and he was entitled to a portion. And they got two portions from their grandfather Chefer, because really Tzalafchad was the oldest of the sons of Chefer, and Chefer also was alive upon leaving Egypt. So he also got a portion, which was divided among all of his sons, Tzalafchad being one of them. But Tzalafchad was the Bechor, so he got a double portion. So therefore there's three portions. There's the double portion of, that's 1 and 2, that Tzalafchad got from his father Chefer, and Tzalafchad's independent portion that he got himself, for a total of 3. So the Gemara surmises, based just on the simple assumptions of the Mishnah, that the people who inherited portions of Eretz Yisrael were not the people who entered into the land 40 years after the Exodus, but rather the people who experienced the Exodus. If you were 20 years older, a male and older, you received, let's say, we'll just call it for argument's sake, you got an acre of Eretz Yisrael. Some measurement of land that was apportioned to every single person. And regardless of how many children you had, that acre was divided among your children depending upon how many children. So you could have one fellow who was a single child, and he got the entire acre of the land that his father got when his father left Egypt. But you could have had another fellow who left Egypt who had 10 kids who enter into Eretz Yisrael, and therefore each one of those 10 kids gets only 1/10 of an acre. Okay? So that's the way it works, the way the Gemara is explaining it. And that's what we had seen yesterday. That's the first opinion of the Brisa of Rabbi Yoshia. Now we're going to see the second opinion of the Brisa, which seems to argue with our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah, the only way that our Mishnah could say that Tzalafchad's daughters got 3 portions is only if you look at the people who left Egypt. Right? And so Rabbi Yonasan disagrees, and he says, Leva'e haaretz nischalka haaretz. He says that no, it's not dependent upon, the acreage is not dependent upon who left Egypt, but it's dependent upon who entered into the land. And I can prove it to you. He says, Shenemar la'ela techalek haaretz benachala. He says, because when the Torah does a census in Parshas Pinchas, immediately afterwards, and it gets 602,000 people and men over 20 and some change, then Moshe says, for these people the land shall be divided. So it's being divided based on the people who are entering the land, not on the people who exited Egypt. Mm-hmm. So Elamani Makayim Lishmos Matos Avosam Yinchalu. But what do you do about the pasuk that Rabbi Yoshia used, which seems to imply that it's according to the numbers of their fathers who left Egypt? So the Gemara answers, Mishuna nachalo zumi kol nachalo sheba olam, shekol nachalo sheba olam chayin yorshin mesim, v'kan mesim yorshin chayim. And so this is a little bit difficult. I mean, the literal translation is that this kind of inheritance is different from all other kinds of inheritances. By normal inheritances, the living inherit the dead, but in this situation, the dead inherited the living. Now, what does this mean? So let's explain it. We've got to unpack it. So the Rashbam explains that what's going on over here is like this. Land acreage was distributed according to the people who entered into Eretz Yisrael. But, with one very important caveat, it was divided differently based upon the people who left Egypt. Apportionment of land was based upon how many people entered the land. So each person who entered, each man over 20 who entered the land got an acre. However, that acre did not belong to you. It had to go back to your father, who left Egypt, and then based upon the divisions in your father's family, at the time of when he left Egypt, that's how much land you actually got. So let me explain it like this. You got 2 brothers from, let's say we'll call them the Yaakov family. Okay, the Yaakov family leaves Egypt, and there are 2 sons. Their names are Shimon and Levi. Reuven and Shimon, Reuven and Shimon leave Egypt, and Reuven, while they're traveling through the desert over those 40 years, is quite productive. He has 10 kids, 10 sons. Shimon is less productive. He only has 1 son. So now in this Yaakov family, last name is Yaakov, right? There are 11 children who enter into Eretz Yisrael. So 11 acres are given now to the Yaakov family that left Egypt, based on the number of people from the Yaakov family who entered into Eretz Yisrael. Mm-hmm. However, don't think that those 11 sons, each one gets an acre. What we do is we give back those 11 acres to those deceased people, Shimon, Reuven and Shimon, and we divide among the two of them 50-50. So 5.5 acres go to Reuven, 5.5 acres go to Shimon. They're dead, and they're inheriting from the living. That's what we mean. And then we give it back to their respective kids. So Reuven's kids collectively get 5.5 acres. So each one of them will get 0.55 acres, right? And Shimon's family gets 5.5 acres. So that single boy chick gets 5.5 acres of land.
Why even mention that each one gets 1 acre?
That's how you determine the total.
Because that's how you determine the total for the Yaakov family. There's 11 acres. Okay?
Punished for having more children.
That's right. Well, listen, that's the tuition crisis, right? The more children you have, the more you got to pay, right? That's essentially, or the more you have to give up, essentially is the way that the system is being described over here. So it is, the amount of land that a family gets is dependent upon how many people enter into the land. So you benefit by having more kids.
There's a nachas component in there too that we're not considering.
Right, and the nachas also, right? But when you determine how much the family divides up the land, you divide it equally among all of the people based on the brothers of that family who left Egypt. Okay? So that's the way the Gemara explains the system according to Rabbi Yonasan. Now, we're going to have to describe Benos Tzalafcha momentarily. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's continue this discussion. So, Amar Rebbe, he says, Rebbe says, just by comparison, just by analogy, I'll explain to you how this works. L'shnei achin kohanim shahayu bi'ir echas, le'echad yesh lo ben echad, ve'echad yesh lo shnei ban. Let's imagine a case of two brothers who are kohanim. One brother has one son, the other brother has two sons. And they decide, we're a little bit older. These two brothers say, let's send our boys to go collect the truma at the threshing barn for our families. And what we'll do is that once our boys come back, we'll divide up the grain among ourselves, among our two families. So v'holchu l'goren zeh, and then the boys go to the threshing barn. Zeh sheyesh lo ben echad notel chelek echad, v'zeh sheyesh lo shnei banim notel shnei chalakim, u'machzirin eitz al avin v'chozim v'cholkin b'shavem. So there are now three boys that go to the threshing barn. Each one of them takes a portion. Let's say each one of them takes a bushel of grain. But they bring it back to their fathers, and there's two fathers now, and they basically say, we agreed that we would divide it equally, whatever our boys bring back. So one brother gets a bushel and a half, the other brother gets a bushel and a half, and that's how they feed their families. One family is larger than the other, but that was how they arranged it. So therefore, that's the way it worked in Eretz Yisrael as well, as far as the division. So now we've seen two opinions. Opinion number one is that it's completely dependent upon the people who left Egypt, as far as how many acres are given out. Opinion number two is that the number of acres that are given to a family are dependent upon the number of people who enter Eretz Yisrael, but the division is dependent upon the people who left Egypt. But now we're going to see a third opinion, and that's Reb Shimon ben Elazar. And he says, and by the way, the Rashbam says he's also reconcilable with our Mishnah as far as the daughters of Tzalafcha, but we'll get to that moment. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer, la'elu v'la elu nischalka haaretz kidei l'kayim shnei mikros halol. So he says, guess what? It's not either or, it's both. If you left Egypt, you got a portion, and if you entered Eretz Yisrael, you got a portion. So therefore, haketzad, haya miyotze mitzrayim notel chelko miyotze mitzrayim, haya miboy haaretz notel chelko imboy haaretz, and mikano mikan notel chelko mikano mikan. So the way it works is like this. If you were part of that generation that left Egypt, you were entitled to an acre of land. And if you were part of the following generation that entered Eretz Yisrael, you were also entitled to an acre. And so therefore you could theoretically have a family where Reuven's father Yaakov leaves Egypt, and Yaakov gets an acre, and then Yaakov dies in the desert. Reuven is 20 years old or older when he goes into Eretz Yisrael, and he gets an acre. But he gets more than an acre. He gets a portion of his father Yaakov's acre as well that he inherits from his father together with his brothers. And that's what it means, mikan o mikan. That if you have both a father and yourself who are over the age of 20, the father was over 20 when we left Egypt, and you're over 20 when you enter into Eretz Yisrael, you'll get to benefit both ways. That's the way the Rashbam simply learns the Gemara. The Brisa now continues and it says, a very interesting side point, but it's an important side point having to do with who inherited Eretz Yisrael. And basically the import of the Brisa is to tell us that if you rejected Eretz Yisrael for whatever reason because of your desire to rebel against Moshe, your portion of Eretz Yisrael was taken away from you. And therefore it says, and this is where the Rashbam reads the following line, Meraglim, Yehoshua v'Chalev natlu chelka. That among the Meraglim, only Yehoshua and Kalev got a portion because the other 10 spies rejected Eretz Yisrael and therefore their portion was taken away from them. Mislonanim va'adas Korach lo haya lahem chelek ba'aretz. The complainers that were part of Korach's mutiny, referring to not only Korach's family but also the 250 men who complained together with Korach, and they brought the Ketores. All of those people lost their portion in Eretz Yisrael. Habanim natlu b'schus avi avihenu b'schus avi mosein. So their sons, who were not part of the mutiny, but nevertheless entered into Eretz Yisrael, what land did they get? So the Brisa says only if they had a grandfather who was alive and over 20 when they left Egypt would these kids get a portion in the land. If not, they were out of luck. So therefore, either a paternal grandfather, you would have to get a portion of the land that your grandfather got and then split it up with your cousins, right? Or your maternal grandfather, assuming that your mother was part of a family where either she was an only child or where there were only daughters and she got an inheritance, so then you would get a chelek of your mother's portion as well. So then the Brisa, I'm not sure whether this is the Brisa now or the Gemara now analyzing the Brisa, but the question is, my mashma dahai lishmos matos avosam b'yotzei mitzrayim ksiv. The whole Brisa's assumption is that the pasuk that says, according to the names of the parents' families, shall you divide Eretz Yisrael. So, and that's what we said before. That implies that it was dependent upon the people who left Egypt. The Gemara is now asking a simple question. Where do you see that the words, according to the families, refers to the people who left Egypt? Dilma l'shvatim ka'amar la. Maybe what the Torah is telling you is something much more basic. It's basically telling you that you got 12 tribes. So divide Eretz Yisrael into 12 parts. And each tribe gets a part of an equal part of Eretz Yisrael. Maybe that's the way you're supposed to learn.
So based on those who enter.
And therefore it would not be based on either the population that left Egypt or the population that entered the land, but rather based upon the original 12 sons of Jacob. Maybe that's what the pasuk means. So the Gemara says, "Dichsiv v'nasati osa lachem morasha ani Hashem, Yerusha hi lachem me'avoseichem u'leyotzei Mitzrayim ka'omer lahu." And the answer to this question is based on the pasuk in Parshas Va'era at the beginning of Sefer Shemos. It says over there that Hashem promises the Jewish people in Egypt that I will give you Eretz Yisrael as an inheritance. And basically, who was Hashem speaking to at the time? He's speaking to the Jews who are about to leave Egypt. And he's saying to them, I will give you an inheritance that comes to you from your ancestors, and each and every one of you shall get a portion. Each one of you will get an equal acre, or whatever that amount is. So that's how we know that Lishmos Matos Avosam refers to those people who left Egypt as getting a portion. Okay, then the next line is just the mnemonic siman, and we go on to the next piece. We're now going to analyze the Brisa further. Amalei Rav Papa le'abayin. Bishlam lamando amar liyotze mitzrayim nischal ka'aretz hainu dichsiv larav tarbeh nachalaso v'lame'at tamit nachalaso. I can certainly understand, according to the first opinion of that Brisa, which says that the people who left Egypt were the criterion for how much land, for the apportionment of land. Then there's a pasuk that makes a lot of sense now. It's a pasuk, again, at the end of Sefer Bamidbar, which talks about inheritance. It says, he who has a lot shall get a lot. He who is small shall get a small amount. Now, what does that mean? It means that even though you may be one distinct human being, you're still going to get less than your fair share, and the other human being that's right next to you may get more than what you're getting. So how's that possible if every person is getting an equal acre, right? If every person is getting an equal amount, if you hold like Rabbi Yonasan, who says that the criterion is based upon the people who entered the land, that pasuk doesn't make any sense. It makes sense if you learn like Rabbi Yoshia, who says that if I come from a big family, there's 10 kids in the family, but dad left Egypt, so then you divide the acre in 10 parts. So then it makes sense for the Torah to say that if you have a small portion, you get a small portion. And I'll only get 1/10 of an acre, where my cousin from Shimon's family will get a whole acre because he's only a single child. So that makes a lot of sense. However, but if you're going to learn like Rabbi Yonasan, it doesn't seem to make any sense. Every person who entered the land takes an acre for himself and his family. So why does it say L'Rav tarben nachalaso v'lamat tamit nachalaso? That he who has a lot shall get a lot, and he who has a little shall get a little. So the Gemara therefore says, Kasha, it's a problem. It is a shtickle of a problem. Now, you could really theoretically answer the question by saying that if you hold like Rabbi Yonasan, remember, even though you get an acre, you still have to give it back to your deceased father and then divide it equally among your cousins. And therefore, it could theoretically turn out that you're going to get less than an acre. But despite that, we're going to let this kasha sit. V'amar Rav Papa Abaya bishlam lamando amar liyotze mitzrayim hainu dekatzavchem v'nos tzelavchad elo lamando amar leboy haaretz amayitzavachan halesei delishma. So the Gemara's question then is, I don't understand. It's one thing if you tell me that the people who left Mitzrayim were entitled to a portion in the land, then I can understand why the daughters of Tzalafchad are complaining. They said, listen, our grandfather left Egypt, our father left Egypt. Why is it that we should get nothing, right? But if it's dependent upon the people who enter into the land, then why are they arguing because of because of Tzalafchad? It's nothing to do with Tzalafchad. Tzalafchad's not coming into Eretz Yisrael. So why should they have a taina at all? If inheritance passes to sons and not daughters, our father's not entitled to inheritance anyway. So even if there is no, they really have no case based upon inheritance. Okay, so the Gemara's answer is, so ella lechazara v'litol b'nichsei chefer. And the answer is, says the Gemara, their argument was basically this, that even according to Rabbi Yonasan, who says it's dependent upon who enters into the land, their point is that if we were boys, we would each of us get an acre, pass it back up to the Chefer family, where Tzalafchad would have a contribution from his sons into the pot of the Chefer family, and then Tzalafchad, because he's a Bechor, would get 2 portions, and then he would pass that back down to his children, his sons. So that's our argument. Our argument is that using the system that Rabbi Yonasan explained, that you do have to incorporate the deceased leavers of Egypt into the mix as far as how you divide up Eretz Yisrael, the daughters of Tzalafchad still had a taina. And their argument was, if we were boys, we would be able to pass up to our father a portion, right? Our portions, our respective acres, that would be put into the mix of Chefer's family, all of Chefer's children. Our father would take a double portion from that pot and then pass it back down to us. But it turns out that we get nothing. And that was what their argument was. Okay, so this is where we will hold it for today. And have a wonderful good Erev Shabbos. Rabbi Chanan ben Akasha Omer.